after such an interactive session, we are coming to the last academic session, and it's an interesting one, Nightmare Cities. The session will be chaired by Dr. Achyut Sarkar, Dr. Vikas Mojumdar, Dr. S.B. Roy, Dr. Varun Kumar, Dr. Dhiman Kahali, and Dr. Devabroto Rai, and will be moderated by Dr. Subhash Chandra C. And the expert panelists will be Dr. Hassan Ibrahim, Dr. Sanjeev Kathuria, Dr. Ashit Khanna, Dr. Sanjeev Sidana, and Dr. Yogendra Singh. Now I request the chairperson and the moderator to start the proceedings.
Dr. Kali sir, can you start the session, sir?
Yeah. So we are going to see wonderful cases in all the conferences or meetings. We wait for these sessions because these are the real learnings and we see different complications and how they are managed. So I would invite the first speaker to speak on his case without wasting any time because we are going very, very late. So please start. Yeah, Dr. Amit, start please.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
You are visible. Yeah.
Sir, there is some problem with the video quality, so
Please go on. We are all with you. Please go on.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to present my case. So I'll be presenting a case of BMV where a certain complication led us to use a new technique which was not described before, which we prefer to call as frugal innovations because we work in a very limited area where availability of hardware is a problem, and we utilize available hardware to overcome that complication. So it was a young female, 32-year-old female, referred to us for symptomatic severe rheumatic mitral stenosis, and the patient was counseled for undergoing treatment, and upon pre-operative evaluation, we found that the patient had got a very large septal aneurysm and was not very fit case for a BMV. But the patient party, they did not want to undergo a surgery. So ultimately, we decided to take up the case for balloon mitral valvotomy, knowing that it will be a little bit problematic case for us, especially the septal puncture part. Otherwise, the valves were pliable and there was no subvalvular disease as such. But the puncture part would be critical, that we knew from the beginning. Anyway, we started the case and we started with the routine antegrade BMV, which is normally practiced at our center. But the needle would not stay at the fossa ovalis. Either it would slip up or slip down. And after third or fourth attempt, in the fourth attempt, we noticed that there was a staining in the aortic root. And possibly the needle had damage there. So at that point of time, we thought that we should abandon the procedure and not go ahead with it because it would be devastating for the patient. So we observed the patient with echocardiography and hemodynamic monitoring. There was no pericardial effusion. Patient was stable hemodynamically. Then at that point of time, we decided that we should try something else. So considering that this septal puncture was a bit risky and trying it furthermore would not be advisable, we thought we would go ahead with a retrograde balloon mitral valvuloplasty. So normally, as you see in the slide, retrograde BMV hardware, as originally described by Stefendis et al., it's a very specialized hardware. And there's a steerable left atrial guide catheter, which you can steer and change the shape of it. and the balloon utilized is also different from the balloons we use normally in the cath lab. But we didn't have that, and all over India, the availability of this hardware is very less frequent. So what we did was we chose a 6 French 3.0 curve EBU guide catheter instead of the deflectable catheter, and we chose for a Tyshek balloon. The balloon size we based on the intercommissural distance. So we prolapsed the EBU guide wire in the left ventricle and then used a soft tip J-tip thermo guide wire to cross from left ventricle retrogradely into the left atrium. As you can see, we were able to cross, and we made a figure of 8 configuration for the wire stability. The only trick and technique here is that the angiographic views you have to take while crossing from LV to LA, because it looks easy but it is very difficult. And in the best angiographic view to cross is to use the lateral view, where the left atrium is a posterior structure. So you orient your EBU guide posteriorly in that view and then try to introduce the wire. And in RAO view, it has to be just below the aorta. So you check in both RAO and lateral views and then cross the wire. We cross the wire, update. Then we use we remove the EBU guide and put the Tyshek balloon over the wire and inflated the balloon at mitral valve. So it was a nice inflation. As you can see, both commissures giving away, the nice waste is coming. And then post-operatively, the results were very good. The mitral gradients, diastolic gradients came down from 19 to 6, valve area increased up to 1.5, and there was trace MR. So as I said, retrograde BMV, although it is a very old technique and not utilized very commonly, but it can be utilized in conditions where previous cardiac surgery, which patch closure of ASD, or like in our case, atrial septal aneurysm, chest wall deformities, IVC or SVC malformations, or procedural failure in septal puncture. And in our case, as I said, unlike the special hardware required, we utilize routinely available hardware, which is available in every cath lab. Especially any special hardware is not required, and it can be accomplished using routine hardware available. The arterial access is 6 French when you use a guide, and once you introduce the Tyshek, which is 9 French, as compared to this 14 to 16 French access used in conventional retrograde technique. It is simple, safe, and low-cost technique, and it was forced by cath lab complications while attempting a antegrade BMV. Thank you very much.
Hello. I think.
Kindly unmute.
Sorry, Amit, beautiful case. You have done wonderfully. And, there was practical problem because there was a aneurysm over the septum. So naturally you couldn't go. And you adopted this route. So it's very innovative and you have done very, very nicely. But there is some comment from Dr. R.D. Jadhav that Tyshek balloon should not be used in valve cases. So what is your comment about that?
Sir, I agree with Yadav sir, because they're not a good for valves, but in situations like this where you don't have options and the balloon which is usually used for retrograde valvuloplasty is not routinely available. Even if you try to find it, you won't find it. So this was a kind of desperate measure at that point of time. But I agree with sir that Tyshek balloon normally is not a good balloon for mitral valvuloplasty at least.
So in that case, would it not have been better to refer the case to a surgeon because it's an easy operation?
Ideally would have been, but in this particular case, the patient party was not ready for surgery. They said either we will take medicine or we will not do anything. So that was otherwise this case was best suited for surgery from the beginning.
You didn't go for transesophageal echo and septal puncture?
No, sir.
Didn't try for it?
we didn't try for it. We thought we'll go ahead with the retrograde.
Okay, anyhow, very well done. Any more comments from
Amit,
the
exactly what
chairperson?
problem? Amit, what exactly was the problem you were facing with the puncture?
Aneurysmal, atrial
Because
septal
the
aneurysm.
septal aneurysm was there, the needle would slip. It would not hold. And as I said, in the third attempt, it struck the root of aorta and there was staining. So after that, we did not try anymore.
So it was, if you see the echo, it was more pointing towards the RA, more towards the free wall of RA.
Yes. Yes.
Then there are little different techniques which you can use to puncture the septum per se. So you can even shape the needle, the broken flow needle. If you give it a little more angle, it will tend to stick onto its 4 o'clock position. So that is one of the methods which you can use. Of course, if you have stained it, it might be done at a separate time. But yes, the techniques are, if you have a protrusion more into the RA, you'll have to give. Other thing which you can do is that normally you tend to puncture with the Mullins. So in this case, you can take out the needle a little bit so that your probing of the septum becomes better. The puncture in this case probably is difficult, yes, but the puncture becomes even more difficult if the septum is more towards LA. That means if your LA pressure is less, the puncture in that case is even more difficult. Yes, if you have a staining, you can go ahead on some other day. But the technique is either to change the angle, take out a needle a little bit, and make sure that you tend to poke with the needle rather than the Mullins, because even if you're poking a hole with the needle not in the aorta but in the free wall, you can get away with that.
Okay, boss.
I think in the interest of time, we move to the next session, and I think that is of Maina. So Maina, can you start?
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
Can you see my slides?
Yeah, very well seen. Yeah, you can start.
Okay.
Moinak, you
So
can start.
I am grateful to the organizer for providing me this opportunity to share this interesting nightmare case. I have nothing to disclose. My case is a 70-year-old non-diabetic, non-hypertensive male smoker with recent unstable angina. He was clinically stable vitals with normal CVS examination, ECG showing T inversion in 1 AVL and V3 to V6. In echocardiography, there was no apparent regional wall motion abnormality at rest with ejection fraction preserved. TROP-T was negative. Other blood parameters were normal. Patient underwent coronary angio outside and revealing a double vessel disease, predominantly LAD proximal to mid significant disease and RCA proximal focal stenosis. So this is the angiographic view. This is the LAD. This was done outside. So we planned for a PTCA with informed consent. At first, we targeted the LAD. So LAD lesion was stented using EBU 3.56 French guide cap with learn through floppy guide wire. We used 2 by 15 millimeter semi-compliant balloon dilatation at 12 atmosphere. Subsequently, we used Metaphor 3.5 into 44 millimeter days. It was deployed uneventfully and subsequent post dilatation done, and the result was satisfactory. I will show you the videos. Then afterwards, we went for the RCA lesion, and we used JR guide 6 French, run through floppy guide wire, same size 2 into 15 millimeter semi-compliant balloon dilatation at 12 atmosphere. Again, the Metaphor 3.5 into 19 millimeter days deployed at 11 atmospheric pressure. The nominal pressure was 9 and RBP was 14, and then the nightmare started. This was the LAD predilatation. After predilatation, this was the LAD stent deployment. Post deployment, post stent deployment, then post dilatation done, then the LAD final result. It was apparently satisfactory. Now RCA stenting, the nightmare happened during the RCA stenting. The post stent deployment shot in RCA shows type 4 perforation. Patient went into cardiac tamponade. Subsequent CPR, pericardiocentesis and autologous transfusion, TPM, another catheter, rewiring and balloon tamponade, everything was tried. protamine injection for heparin reversal was tried. Unfortunately, because we used 3.5 size stent, but we had only 2.8 millimeter size cover stent available. Hence, considering the chance of less effectivity and higher thrombosis, it was avoided. And luckily, we were lucky enough that balloon tamponade finally could seal the entire scenario. This is the RC after wearing. Then ballooning. Post ballooning, there was no apparent calcification noted in any of the vessel. This was the stent. Stent positioning. Now the post stent deployment. And then the nightmare started. So unfortunately, at this point of time, because of the critical situation of the patient and along with relatively less support from the guide cath, we lost everything. So we had to again re-engage. We put the TPM and we started for the balloon tamponading. We rechecked, there was bleeding still ongoing. Again, tamponading. Now, this is the wear for the pericardiocentesis. We went with the pigtail catheter. Then second catheter, we took a second catheter because by this time, it was almost around 20 minutes, but we are not very satisfied with the result regarding stopping the bleeding. So we were thinking about some using sandwich stent making by ourselves in the lab by using 2 stent and 1 balloon segment. But luckily, we are lucky enough that at the end of the time, the bleeding finally was controlled and the patient was stable and he was kept in observation for around 7 days. And after 7 days, we again took a reshot and subsequent angiography was fine. It was done around 2 years back and patient is regular on follow-up and he is doing fine. So we are not very sure whether we missed any calcification because not always in fluoroscopy calcification is possible to see, but unfortunately we had got no opportunity to go for any intracoronary imaging at that point. So there was another possibility that we thought that probably because of some strained strut fracture that might have caused that, but we are not sure. Here I've taken the zoomed image after the deployment of the stent. It was not very well inflated stent and there was a site in the stent which was not very well visualized, so might be some strut fracture, but we are not sure because without any definite IVUS imaging it is very difficult. So my take home message will be no lesion is simple. Complication although is a part of intervention and we must have adequate homework and hardware support and CTVS backup to tackle them. But unfortunately, many a times in government setup, we don't have that much of hardware support. Not always all size stents and cover stents are available. Intervention is a team game and it is necessary to keep the nerve cool. Calcium may be apparently invisible in fluoroscopy, but we should keep in our mind regarding the stent strut fracture also. We should take the liberty to take the help of the intracoronary imaging. Better bed preparation is prior to implantation is very essential. And 2 very important tips which I learned from my teacher is check the result keeping the balloon within the catheter. That is once we dilate with a balloon, a particular lesion, then we should keep the balloon in the distal part of the catheter and then recheck at least, because if there is any perforation, we can immediately keep that balloon inside the vessel and go for the tamponade. It will not waste the time. And in perforation, never recheck with snugly fit catheter, because if the catheter is snugly fit and given the dye, then again there will be chance to increase the size of the perforation, and balloon occlusion of the feeder vessel is effective method to seal the perforation. So my special thanks to my teacher and my colleague. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Very well done. You managed the situation very well. But a few comments. First of all, you should have a cover stand in the cath lab, different sizes, at least one. And when it gets exhausted, you should ask or you should assign somebody that if it gets exhausted, you have to get it back. That's very
We had,
mandatory.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
We had only
And
2.8 millimeter
secondly,
size. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
and secondly, you know, the vessels were calcified, no doubt. The LED was also calcified, and I would have appreciated if you would have dilated the LED with a little higher sized balloon. And third, the stent is grossly malapposed, and you know it was not dilated. That proves that it is further proof that
Sir,
it was a highly calcified lesion. The
can I-
RCA stent, you know, the proximal portion is not dilated.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
anyhow, you managed the situation very well. Congratulations. And fourth but not the least, that you should not be what you mentioned in your slide. You should be very calm and quiet, that it can happen and there are so many things we can do. So nothing will happen at the end and the patient will survive because you have done everything. You have given protamine, you have trained. So just keep the wire intact and the balloon also. And I also always take a shot keeping the balloon over there, even the stent balloon. I don't take it in the pictures, even in the cinefilm. Just see that everything is okay. Then you take out the balloon, you know. That's a good
Yes.
thing to do. So
Yes,
that
yes.
even if something has happened, and we take every case that something can happen. So, you know,
Yes.
because many of the lesions are calcified. So these 4-5 things we should practice. And these are very, very important to safeguard ourselves. But anyhow, I must congratulate you, Moina, for your excellent managing the situation, and you have done an excellent job. But these are the few lessons we should always remember.
Can
Comments
I make
from
a
any of
comment?
the short comments?
Yeah, sir, the point is, I think the most important thing if you have a perforation is not to lose the wire. The other thing which is important is to have to go to a ping pong technique, make sure that you make another puncture, and then you have then assess so that your temporal is maintained by the first one. The important thing is that most of the, but an important thing observed is that most of the perforation which occur after stenting, they tend to seal. Since you already put the stent, you should never be very dogmatic about chasing the coagulation profile or reversing your heparin. So the ping pong technique, never losing your access and waiting for these conditions when you are after stent. The perforation after
Sir, please
much
unmute
better
yourself.
chance.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I would invite the next speaker, Mr. Shumit Shankar, Dr. Shumit Shankar, DM, and he is working with Dr. Dilip Kumar and Dr. Ravin Chakraborty, and he will be talking on a tale of CTO bifurcations and thrombus. So Shumit, please, because we are running behind the time grossly.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
You are absolutely audible. You are visible. Please go on.
Thank you, everyone. I'll be talking about a tale of CTO, bifurcation, and thrombus. So here is a 51-year-old non-diabetic hypertensive who presented to us with chest pain of grade 3-4. ECG showed ST depression in V4, V5, V6, and echo showed RWMA with EF of 45%. So this is the angio, which shows proximal LAD to CTO with multiple lesions in LCX and OM. The RCA shoot, which shows a good filling of the LAD up to the proximal with diagonal filling as well. So we engaged the left main and we crossed the CTO with the XTA wire, and the wire was always going into the diagonals. It was crossed with the help of a microcatheter. So we checked the wire positions in multiple orthogonal views. We took another XTA wire with microcatheter and trying to cross the lesion into the LAD. So despite multiple attempts, we were not able to cross it to the LAD. It was always going into the diagonals in spite of wire escalations and using other wires. So we decided to do some plaque modification. So we took a small balloon, went into the diagonals, pulled it back and dilated it to a low pressure. Following this, we were able to cross the lesion and go into the LAD with the help of a Gaia wire and in a microcatheter. Following this, Gaia was exchanged with a run-through wire, and it was, you can see it's well placed in the LAD. Following this, we stented the LAD with a drug-eluting stent 3x40. Post stenting, there was no flow in the diagonals, but LAD, even in LAD, you can see there are multiple lesions in distal LAD. So following this, we recrossed the diagonal and dilated the ostium of the diagonal. We stented the distal LAD with 2.75 into 26 drug-eluting stent and did a tap diagonal with 2.5 into 18. Followed by kissing, balloon inflation, and pot. And this was the final result. Everything was good till this point of time. So when suddenly we noticed there is a thrombus at the bifurcation junction. The ACT was checked, it was 3.305. At this point of time, 13,000 of heparin was already given. So we gave GP2B. Patient started having chest pain, his BP dropped. We started him on inotropes, NORAD, and we continued with thrombus aspiration. So we did aspirations of the LAD, followed by a check shoot, which showed slow flow in the LAD. There was no distal flow, and also there was no flow in the diagonals. The patient was still hypotensive. So followed by, we did multiple runs of thrombosuction in the LAD. Despite that, there was some flow, but distal flow was not achieved yet, and there was still no flow in the diagonals. So following this, we rewired the diagonal, did thrombus aspiration of the diagonals and the LAD, and some flow was achieved, but we can still see the thrombus at the ostial diagonal and LAD. So following this, we again did aspiration of the thrombus from the LAD and diagonals. So in total, we did around 20 suctions. So following this, TIMI3 flow was achieved in the LAD, even though there was no flow in the diagonals. But at this point of time, we considered grounds and thought, okay, fine, this is the end. But after 48 hours of check shoot, we can clearly see that there is flow restoration in the diagonals as well. So we went ahead with stenting of the LCX and OM with a mini crush 2.75, 21 and 3 into 28. Followed by kissing balloon inflation and pot. And we can see the final result. So this is the final result so this is the comparative angio of pre and post. So all in all, we had an excellent result. So long procedures like CTO with bifurcation always pose a risk for thrombosis in spite of constant ACT monitoring. So sometimes conceding ground may be in favor of the patient as well as for the operator.
Okay, you managed the situation very well, no doubt, Sumit. You have done a wonderful job and very well managed. But few comments. How was the ACT when the thrombosis?
ACT was 305. At that point of time, 13,000 international units of heparin was already given. And we after that, we gave around 2,000 more.
Okay.
The ACT was good. The patient was loaded with ticagrelor. And also at that point of time, we gave GP2B inhibitors.
One thing we saw that the middle portion of the stent after the origin of diagonal was under expanded. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. We post dilated it.
And there was a small dissection maybe there because you saw there was something H coming out of that portion.
Yeah,
so
actually,
that is to be,
we did not.
The thrombus, we saw the thrombus, but still I saw very carefully the stent after the diagonal was under expanded. Okay.
We did not do any.
So always we should, because the vessel was calcified and it was very difficult to assess because it was a CTO lesion. Yes. And you have done everything rightly. You took a microcatheter, went through GAIA2 probably. Yes. I also adopt that technique and you have been able to go. Always we are able to go that take, I mean, majority of the time
Yes,
we
sir,
are
we
able
have,
to, if it doesn't go, take something higher. So everything was very fine, but it does occur thrombosis, it occurs. Whatever you have done is perfect. You have
CTO
given
is obviously a long
DAPT,
procedure.
you have given, you have kept ACT 305. Rather, during the CTO, initially before crossing the wire, we keep ACT around 200, not go very high. Because, you know, if something happens due to that apprehension, and that is internationally done. So everything was fine, but it do happen, but that portion was little under-dilated. So that is one thing. You have managed the situation very well. I must congratulate you. And a very few small comments, very precise small comments from the chairpersons. Any comments? I think,
next speaker, Punish.
yeah. So
Punish
I would
Sadhana.
invite the next speaker.
Punish Sadhana.
Punish Sadhana.
Okay. So you please come and present your case.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. And I'm thankful to organizers of this conference for giving me this opportunity to present this case. This is a case which we sometime have to face, and it can turn to be a nightmare in my case. So this is a case of iatrogenic coronary artery ostial dissection. So to summarize my clinical features of the patient, this was a 66-year-old male, hypertensive diabetic, presented to us with the complaints of chest pain on exertion for 3 months. ECG showed Q waves and STD changes in inferior leads, and there was RWMA in the RCA territory, and EF was 45%. And angiography showed double vessel disease, mid-LED showing 75 to 80% stenosis. RCA proximal, there was a plaque, and PLV was showing 80% stenosis. So patient was planned to underwent PTCN stent to LED and PLV. So I'll not be showing that LED PTCA. It was done with the one DS and with good TB3 flow achieved. So this was the RCA angiography. As you can see, there is proximal to mid plaque, and there was a lesion in the PLV, which was stented, pre-dilated, and 2.5 by 16 millimeter DS was deployed from crux to PLV, as PDA was diffusely deceased. And after taking the guide wire out, a check shot was taken, and there was a sudden slow or no flow with a large dissection. This was the check shot after implanting the DS in the distal RCA to PLV. And as you can see from this this shot, there is a large dissection starting from ostium to mid RCA with the distal slow flow, and the patient started experiencing chest pain, and there was hypotension also. So as we have lost the guide wire also, I have used the similar guide wire, the workhorse wire, the BMW wire. And distally, it was not going, it looks like it was not going into the true lumen, and it looks into the false lumen. So I took another wire, the workhorse wire that we used, that is BMW wire. This wire was in the false lumen. That shot I'm not having, in which I have crossed another BMW wire, which was in the true lumen. And I have implanted a DS starting from the ostium to mid of RCA. Still some distal to this ostium to mid RCA stent, some haziness was seen. So I have given intracoronary NTG and Nicoran. and the lesion was post-dilated, and this was the final result. It was an excellent result. TIMI3 flow was seen, and there was no dissection seen, and good TIMI3 flow is achieved. So the risk factors for this iatrogenic coronary artery dissections are like most probably the catheter manipulation and use of Amplatz type of catheters, vigorous contrast injections, deep intubation of the catheter within the coronary artery, the varying anatomy of coronary ostia, and acute MI settings. This is a classification of coronary artery dissection. Type A is just represent minor radiolucent areas within the coronary lumen. And type F is dissection that represent those that lead to total occlusion of the coronary lumen without distal antegrade flow. And type E dissection was persistent filling defects within the coronary lumen. Type A and B are generally clinically benign, and whereas type C through F portend the significant morbidity and mortality if untreated. And this is an algorithm which is taken from the Journal of American College of Cardiology 2019 for iatrogenic coronary artery dissection. So first of all, the most important point is that no further antegrade injection should be given, and institute appropriate hemodynamic support, use a passive guide catheter that avoids deep engagement, and attempt wiring of the true lumen with a non-hydrophilic wire, which I've done. And if possible, although it was not possible in our case, as it was a panic situation and we don't want to lose the time, and we didn't have the wire inside the lumen also. If the wire is in true lumen, then you have to implant the stent. If the time allows, you can do IVUS examination to if there is a wire in the false lumen, then guided rewiring can be done. And in the extreme cases, retrograde approach or re-entry with a string ray or a wire braid dissection or re-entry can be tried. But in acute conditions, like in my case, luckily I was able to put the guide wire in the true lumen and ultimately achieve the TIMI3 flow by implanting a stent from ostium to mid-RCA. To conclude, the iatrogenic catheter-induced coronary dissection is rare but serious complications. Proper guide catheter handling and avoidance of forceful injections are important. Small dissections require conservative approach, but large dissection can lead to abrupt vessel closure, and timely recognition and prompt bailout stenting is a feasible option and should be considered early. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Very well done, Punish. You have managed the situation very well. There was an ugly dissection, and you are very lucky that the proximal RCA dissection did not extend to the aorta, because I had the occasion of seeing such cases. In that case, you have to ask the surgeon to take over because it extends and goes downward. So you are very lucky. And the first thing we have to do, that you didn't lose the wear. So where is the problem? You just put a stent over there, put at proper pressure, seal everything, and you have done a fantastic job. You got a good flow. So that's the first thing. Don't lose any time. Don't get panicked as you have told. Just put the stent, dilate it at a proper pressure, establish the flow. Everything will be all right. Pressure will come up, patient will be free of chest pain, and also prevent, antegrade, progress of the, into the aorta. I mean, from the retrograde, actually from the RCA towards the aorta. That will be dangerous. If there is a dissection in the aorta and it progresses, that will be dissection, because it was a very ugly dissection. And your handling of the catheter was very good. I was watching one, foreign faculty yesterday. The guide position was not proper. It was coming at least 30, 40 times. I saw the guide was coming out, and it causes, but your guide handling was very good. And you can't go to the distal location if you want to do something as PLV if your guide is not well suited. So that's all right. You are not hasty in taking out the balloon. So we should always be very careful when we take out the balloon. We shouldn't take out like this. We should be very gentle in taking it out. So everything is properly done, but it does happen. It's not your fault, but you have managed the situation. But first thing, don't get panicked. Don't lose the wear position, and do it properly so that, put a stent and everything will be sealed. That's the most. And put it very early. No question of stingray, no question of any other.
Yes.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Dr.
Next.
Katika. He has
Sanjeev Kataria.
So should I start my screen sharing?
Yeah, please start. Please start. We are
The
running
slides
behind
visible?
time.
Slides are visible?
Yeah, yeah, it's visible. Sanjeev.
Yeah. So this was a case of an L6 CTO, which was started with the regular micro
Thank you.
catheter, fine cross, and a whisper wire. And because of the Carolina technique, we had a dissection of the left vein had to handle. So this was a 64-year-old smoker, hypertensive, non-diabetic male. Had a previous history of CAD, but whether it was a MI, no old records were available. He had a crescendo angina over the last 2 months with no significant finding on examination, and echo which was essentially normal, and an ECG which showed T-wave inversion in laterally. So this was his ECG. This was his. I have not shown you the film. I've hooked it with a left guiding catheter, Dupkin's left. I found it difficult to hook it, and so I thought that starting the case with a implanter would give me a better support, since I am trying to handle the L6. So a regular. This was the RC of the patient, which I thought will be handled later. Regular. This was the syntax score. The syntax score was coming out to be 18, so we thought about intervening in the case with a normal LED. I used an anchor wire technique so that I get a stability, because hooking it I was finding it difficult either with an implanter guide. This was a fine cross and this was a whisper wire. So I initially thought that I've been able to penetrate the retrograde filling of the L6 from the LED system. I thought I penetrated well, but then I advanced the microcatheter and I used the Carolina technique to see whether I am in the true lumen or not. And this is where the whole faltering occurred. On using the Carolina, there was a retrograde dissection which went to the left main and the LED closed. So the first thing then what was done was to wire the LED as was required, balloon the proximal part of the LED and stent the LED, LMC to LED to a pot. And at this stage, this case was left at this stage. So I took it up next about a week after that. And because I already knew that the problem is with the guide, so I took an implanter guide, and this was an implanter 1.5 now. That I didn't have an implanter 1.5 on the shelf at that day. So used a parallel wire technique. The whole important thing was now to cross the microfarad through a stent strut. So I found it quite difficult to cross even a new microfarad over the stent strut. So I parked the microfarad right at the mouth of the left main stent, and then used a parallel wire technique. And the wires used were the Probia wire and the whisper wire, and I was able to successfully cross over into the L6 this time, and I did a stenting of the L6 in a normal manner. In the same setting, since the ejection is also okay, and I thought we've already punctured him twice, we went ahead and did the stenting of the L6. So the RC was crossed. Again, I found difficult to hook the RC. It was a anomalous origin, little high origin, so we took an implanter, ballooned it. The problem this time was that I decided to take a long stent. And in the process of pushing after the pre-dilatation and preparing the lesion, I've used a wire loop to stay in. The stent, I'll show you, the stent got dislodged from its surface. So this was another complication which occurred. As you can all appreciate that you can have the balloon is much higher than the stent. The stent got crippled. So I introduced another wire and I twisted the wire and took out the whole stent along with the and the problem was that I was very sure that the problem will occur at the level of the groin. So at the level of the groin, I stay put and change the guide, the check flow to 8F, and then I was able to take out the stent. And then routinely did the angioplasty with another, after preparing the room for the bed further, did the angioplasty with another 48 millimeter stent. And this was the final. The take home message was that Carlino must be cautiously used. The problem here I had with Carlino was that I, instead of using a 5.5 cc one should use not more than 0.5 cc with a 2 cc syringe. I used I think I must have used higher IA with a more pressure. It led to the retrograde dissection. Once you have such a dissection, it's very critical to avoid antegrade injection, as was mentioned by Dr. Punish also in the previous case. An antegrade dissection is a suicidal tendency of increasing it. So you should, because if you use the antegrade dissection, the hydraulic enlargement of the dissection crane will go further. Maneuvering a microcatheter through stents is always going to be difficult. The best part is that if you want to try to park a microcatheter, if the lesion is far, if it's a proximal lesion, of course the difficulty is going to be less. If it's a distal lesion, of course you'll have to make sure that you make a space in your on your stent, so that your stent, if your microcatheter can pass by good, at least should stand at the mouth so that you get appropriate support. Of the removal of crimped stent does not always mandate snare usage. You can use the side balloon technique or twisting. Finally, you can use a micro snare over this wire itself, but sometimes even such a large stent can get. But remember, the problem is not just removing the stent from the coronary, but at the groin. So make sure that you make your excess of groin huge enough so that you can take the snare, because most of the time they get crimpled at this place, and if you have a large stent which is not crimped in the groin, the problem is going to be galore. Thank you.
Oh, excellent case, Professor Katuria. You have shown it so nicely, and you have done all the steps that shows your prudence and courage during the difficult times. I think there is nothing much to be told. You have done everything so nicely and managed the situation. It's great. Congratulations, Professor Katuria. And your comments were also very well taken by us. I was watching your comments, Shonji, throughout the meeting, and it was really excellent. So any comments from my co-chairs?
Is there any reason why the RCA stent dislodged? What was the reason? Weight preparation, or what was the problem?
Two reasons, Sunandan. First, the bed preparation obviously was not adequate enough. Second, because it was a anomalous RCA and we're using an implanter, you try avoid taking larger stents. So the combination of an anomalous RCA and a poor bed preparation added on to it. And the fact that, yes, you tried to push in also. So the guide, because it's an implanter guide, it tried to get sucked in. So the implanter guide stuck the guide, the stent, and the stent got dislodged from the balloon.
What is the make of the stent? What is the company?
I think it was a Pronova stent.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
so
very
the
well
second
done.
stent was also the same size as the first stent.
Yeah,
Why
the
did you
fucking,
not
this
take
time,
the-
So there were two constraints. One was the financial constraint. But then I very clearly realized that my bed preparation was not well enough. So I took a 3.25 balloon and prepared, and this time the stent just went easily. So I think whatever Sunandan asked was a very pertinent question, because this doesn't look to be that tortuous an artery to invite this kind of problem. The reason was not a good bed preparation, and of course the anomalous origin.
Yeah. Okay, anyhow, very well done, Professor. It's very well done, Professor. So we can call the next speaker, Shunandan.
I think it is Dr. Panja who can be starting this session.
Okay.
Dr. Panja. Is there
Professor Panja.
Madhuvanti Panja there?
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My topic is complication post PCI in a case of LED calcified lesion. This is a short history about the patient. He's a 81 years old male, ex-smoker, presented with chest pain since 4 to 5 days. He's a known case of diabetes, hypertension, and dyslipidemia. ECG showed anterolateral wall ischemia. Coronary angiography showed LED lesion, long proximal calcified lesion, 85 to 90% with irregularity at the proximal part. The RCA showed 85% stenosis at the distal part, and PDA showed 50 to 60% stenosis. So this is the coronary angiography showing LED, long proximal calcified lesion, 85 to 90% with gross irregularity at the proximal part. We can also see there's a 90% stenosis at the ostial D1. So this is the RCA. Distally, There is 85% stenosis, and the PDA shows 50 to 60% stenosis. So we proceeded with the RCA. The right coronary artery was crossed with a double wire technique. The lesion was pre-dilated and stented with 3 into 8 drug-eluting stent, and the lesion was post-dilated with NC balloon. So this is the final result after post-dilatation of right coronary artery. Then we proceeded with the left coronary artery. The calcified lesion was crossed with great difficulty with the help of Sion blue wire. Repeated NC balloon dilatation was done. Initially, it was dilated with 2.5 followed by 3 into 10 millimeter at 10 atmospheric pressure. A 3.5 into 34 millimeter drug-eluting stent was crossed with great difficulty since it was a calcified lesion. The proximal and the distal part was post-dilated with NC balloon 3 into 15 at 15 atmospheric pressure. So this is the final result after post-dilatation of the calcified lesion, LAD, proximal part. The patient was discharged asymptomatic and hemodynamically stable. The patient was discharged on Ecosprin, Brilinta, statin, antihypertensives, and antidiabetics. After 2 weeks, the patient complained of chest pain. ECG showed no fresh changes. The patient was advised for medical therapy. But after 1 week, the patient was readmitted and he was refractory to medical therapy. So a check angio was done. The check angio showed huge aneurysm at the proximal end of LAD, but the RCA stent was patent. So this is the check angio. It revealed huge aneurysm at the proximal end of LAD, and we can see the RCA stent is patent. So immediately the patient was referred to a cardiac surgeon for plication of aneurysm followed by a Lima graft in LAD. So the conclusion is in diabetic patients, calcified lesion with irregularity of the proximal part of LAD was subjected to PCI with drug-eluting stent. But eventually, after 2 weeks, the patient presented with chest pain. A check angiogram was done, which showed huge aneurysm at the proximal part. The cause of the aneurysm may be due to trauma because of repeated post-dilatation by NC balloon. Finally, the aneurysm was repaired with plication and Lima graft. The patient was discharged, and right now, he's doing well. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhumanti. Beautiful case. We used to see a lot of aneurysms during the era of cipher stent, that produced, but that became after a long time, after a few months or after a year like that. But it's a beautiful exposition, and you are right that the dilatation of the proximal part of the stent lead to this aneurysm, but there is no way. We have also done the same thing, but very well managed, very well done. Proper diagnosis at proper time that saved the life of this octogenarian gentleman. I think you have done the case very well. Congratulations, Dr. Paja. And any comments from my co-chairs? Any comments?
Can any infection cause aneurysm in a case? Is there any possibility?
In case of infective endocarditis, but in this case, the patient didn't have any fever.
Okay, I think we can
Okay.
next case then by Sidnath Singh, who is representing Dr. Saraj Mandal.
Okay. So Sharaj is not there. Okay.
Sidnath Singh will be.
Okay.
Sidnath Singh, can you start?
Okay. Dr. Singh, please.
Sir, am I visible, sir?
Yeah, you are visible. Your slides haven't appeared. Please get the slides. You go to slideshow. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you are very much visible.
Good evening. I am going to present in behalf of Dr. Suraj Mandal, sir, a very interesting case of pulmonary artery aneurysm with two feeder vessels, which was successfully closed by a single vascular plug. A 26-year-old male presented with the shortness of breath for 1 month, which was gradual in onset. And he had also a history of the giant cell tumor of the right tibia, which was excised, and intramedullary nailing was done 4 years ago. For the evaluation of this shortness of breath, chest X-ray was done, which shows large bilateral masses, and on biopsy confirmed that that was the giant cell tumor. On further evaluation, his chest CT angiography revealed a left pulmonary artery aneurysm. This is the CT angiography of the thorax showing a large pulmonary aneurysm arises from the left pulmonary artery. The biopsy of the aneurysm was not attempted due to the fear of the rupture of the aneurysm that may lead to any catastrophe. And so the patient is posted to cath lab for invasive angiography. First of all, we selectively engage the left pulmonary artery with the help of the multi-purpose catheter. And when dye is injected in the distal left pulmonary artery, we are not able to see the pulmonary aneurysm. Again, with the help of the multi-purpose catheter, when dye injected in the proximal left pulmonary artery, we are also not able to see the pulmonary aneurysm. So, second time, we engage the left pulmonary artery with the help of the pictal catheter, and the dye is injected both in the distal and the proximal pulmonary artery. And again, unable to see the pulmonary aneurysm. So at this time, we are in doubt that is any pulmonary artery aneurysm is present or not. But we decided to go through one more with the selective engagement of the Judkins right catheter. And with the help of the Judkins right catheter, we saw that a huge pulmonary artery was present, which was arises with the left pulmonary artery. And when dye is injected in the RAO view, that surprisingly show that this aneurysm is fed by two feeder vessels. One is above, and the second feeder vessel is just slightly below to it. So a long exchange wire is passed and placed across the JR, and we try to place the delivery sheath at desired place over this exchange wire. We put the delivery catheter at the desired place, and the exchange wire is withdrawn. This is the delivery sheath. The tip is the place inside the aneurysm. But when the delivery cable was passes across the sheath, or at the time of the deployment, every time the catheter, the delivery sheath displays from the desired position, because due to the lack of the flexibility of this delivery sheath, and the aneurysm is inside the pulmonary artery, so we not getting any support. And the many times, over 20 to 25 times, either at the time when the delivery caliber is passes, or at the time of the deployment, the catheter tip, delivery sheath tip is displaced from the deployed position. So we plan for the mother and the child technique. Again, the exchange wire is put across the feeder inside the aneurysm. We use mother and child technique. And finally, the delivery sheath tip is position at the desired and little bit of support is gained. And first of all, try to close this feeder vessel with the help of the 10 mm of the vascular plug. But this vascular plug slipped from the mouth. So at that time, we decided to upsize the vascular plug and re-attempt to close. And the second time, we take the 14 mm of the vascular plug crosses through the feeder vessel and the confirmed with the check angiography that the vascular plug was from the superior feeder vessels and the desired position. So finally, deployment of the 14 mm of the vascular plug was done. Post deployment, check angiography shows the successful closure of that feeder vessels. And at this time, by luck, when the check angiography was done, due to the slight downward tilting of the inner side part of the vascular plug, the second feeder vessels is also occluded. This was by chance. And this was the final tube after the closure of the 14 mm of the vascular plug. The repeat CT pulmonary angiography was done and that failed to detect any pulmonary artery aneurysm. So this was the successful closure of this aneurysm with single feeder, with a single vascular plug. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh, for excellent presentation. So congratulations to both you and Dr. Sharaj Mondal. Please convey my congratulations to him as well. And I also congratulate Dr. Sunandan and Dilip Kumar for choosing such excellent cases. Really, all the cases are very well chosen, very well managed, and all the cases have learning curves in it. So beautifully done. Any comments? Because we are running very over the time.
Which sheath were you using? What was the sheath that you were using?
That was, sir, actually delivery sheath, which was provided with the vascular plug.
So the most important thing for putting it across, if you're trying to put it, is if you're using a 7F guide, you can use a guide, take an extra stiff implanter, extra stiff wire. And the second important thing is take always a braided sheath. What is happening is that your sheath is probably not braided.
Sir, first
and
time,
this was a LifeTech
yes, sir.
Plug. Was this a LifeTech device?
Yes, sir.
So the LifeTech device is probably in the plugs is not braided. I'm not very sure. But the problem with the braided will be it will be difficult to take. So you use an extra stiff, double extra stiff wire to put 2 extra stiff wires and take it. But the good thing about a non-braided sheath is it's easier to take. It's easier to take, but it's easier to slip also. So once you're able to position a braided sheath there, the slippage which you said occurred 20-25 times would have taken.
Sir, after first,
I think due to the shortage of time, we will go to the valedictory session next.
Just thing is, use the cook sheet. The braided sheets are cook sheets. So even if you're trying to put anything, try to use a cook sheet. It helps you much better.
Okay.
Subhasis, so we will go to the valedictory session. We can start making the announcement.
So I thank everybody, chairpersons, moderator, and everybody present over here, and all the presenters. Beautiful cases presented, and so nicely comments also were passed from different moderators and chairpersons. Thanks, Professor Kathuria, especially. You have been present with us for the last several hours, and thank you for your excellent
really
comments,
nice.
Dr. Kathuria.
Really nice.
And we would invite you right now. You have to give us some time for 24th and 25th of July. We have the NIC meeting. You have to be present like this with us.